Hi, I'm Liza, and today I'm going to tell you how to not go broke immigrating to a new country.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Don't Go Broke Trying. I am your host Reni, and on this podcast we teach you how to not go broke trying to live your best life. Today I have a very special guest on the podcast, and her name is Liza. Hi Liza.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, living the dream.
Yeah. And Lisa is going to be teaching us, as you heard in the intro, how to not go broke trying to immigrate to a new country. I have gotten this request so many times of people telling me that they are immigrating to Canada, especially from Nigeria. I'm Nigerian, so a lot of my following is
Makes
Nigerian.
sense.
And a lot of people ask me, okay, what are the top 5 things I need to know when I move to Canada? What are the top 6 things? So I came here when I was 4 years old. I don't have any experience with that, but Liza does. So I was excited to bring Liza on the podcast to talk to you all about this. So Liza, maybe if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So born and raised in actually Eastern Europe and Belarus, which a lot of the audience probably doesn't know where it is, but it's kind of in between Poland and Russia. Very hot area to be right now for unfortunate reasons. But I moved to Canada when I was 18, really to go to university. I went to UBC, and I kind of came in to UBC knowing I wanted to do something math, maybe finance related, but really had no idea. Like many students, I think, at an age of 18 of what the future has to hold. So kind of went down a very traditional finance path post-graduating, did investment banking for a few years, got my CFA, and then really wanted to kind of hone in on my interest in tech. And so I actually took a role to lead finance and strategy for Square in Canada, which ended up relocating me to Toronto. And about 2 years after that, I left that to start my own fintech business.
Woohoo.
So pretty, wild journey over the last 8 years.
Yeah.
Lots of learnings along the way. Lots of mistakes were made. So any way I can help people not make those mistakes, I think is going to be great.
Yeah, I think this episode is going to be very valuable for people to learn from your mistakes. So that if you are coming to Canada, you do not make these same mistakes. Or maybe if you're here, you can still learn some things.
Yeah, definitely.
And okay, so maybe you could tell us a little bit about your childhood and how you grew up. Because I think it's one thing to talk about money, but what if you were a trust fund baby? Like, it's not the same as if you...
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So could you tell us about how you grew up? And okay, you already told us where you grew up, but how you grew up and your first experiences with money, if you remember them.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's I think it's a great question, but I think it's very important, and I'm very honest to say that I did grow up relatively privileged, especially relative to a lot of people in Belarus. I would say I grew up comfortably upper middle class, not, like the Russian oligarch rich, not a trust fund baby by no stretch of imagination, but, I didn't have to worry where my next meal comes from and stuff like that. I went on a couple of vacations a year with my family. Overall, I was doing probably much better than the average Belarusian kid. That being said, my parents were divorced, and I actually divorced when I was really young. And my mom never really went back to work because she was really focused on raising me. I had a younger sister who's 6 years younger than me. And as a result, she kind of, I think, my relationship with money stemmed from kind of my relationship with my parents. My mom was very dependent on my dad for money, so she lived kind of alimony payment to alimony payment. And my dad, although, he was doing really well for himself, he didn't really have a lot of time to spend with us. And so I think money was kind of a love language for him. And as a result, that built a very unhealthy relationship with money for me, because I would feel really good spending money, which is kind of dangerous, especially as you become an adult. You become addicted to that feeling that money can provide you. And I think that's like why it's very important to touch on that, right? Like, I moved to Canada, my parents paid for my tuition. I did not take on student loans, but I did have to work really hard to sustain the rest of my, lifestyle, pay my rent and pay my car payments and my phone bill. And so I always worked really, really hard, but I think it's important to kind of say as a disclaimer, I was not like a struggling person growing up, but I think there was a lot of things that happened in my life that made for a very unhealthy relationship with money.
Good. Thank you for sharing. Not good, but thank you for But thank you for sharing that with us and being honest, because I say the same. Like, I've never struggled in my life. So the way that I speak about money is very personal to me, and like everyone should take that context in mind when they hear it.
100%.
And I think that a lot of the people who will be listening are international students, and a lot of them, to be an international student, you kind of need to have a level of privilege oftentimes.
100%.
So I think a lot of people will probably relate to you, where their parents maybe covered schooling, but the rest of it they had to, kind of hustle to cover. So when did you move to Canada? You said the age of 18?
Yeah, it was 2014 actually. I remember it was August 29, 2014.
Nice.
It was my first time being in North America ever.
Wow.
So
Big
I've
move.
never been in North America before, and my first time literally stepping foot here was in Vancouver. I landed. It was a couple of days before school started. I remember renting a hotel room right on Granville Street, and if you're at all familiar with Vancouver,
I've heard
Granville is not the best place to be. But obviously, like coming in, I had no idea
Yeah.
what it was like. It looks central on the map.
Yeah.
That works, And I remember just coming in, and one of the first things you see, especially on Granville, Vancouver, is like just ton of homeless people.
Yes.
Unfortunately, just like such a big disparity, right? And growing up in Europe, I've never seen that, and I
Yeah.
just remember thinking, what
Where
did
did
I
I
sign up for?
You're like, wait, what?
What? This is not what the pictures of Vancouver look like
Is this the
on
land of
Google.
opportunity that we have been speaking? Yeah. And we have a huge houseless problem in Canada in general.
Yeah,
Especially
that
in
and just
Vancouver.
I think inequality, although it's really great, like and not great as in good, but like in terms of very big problem in Eastern Europe, like there is that very ultra rich, and there's people who kind of are like lower middle to upper middle class. The thing that I would say about, I think a lot of people don't know about Eastern Europe is that probably because of the communist, kind of past, there is very high level of government support. So there is free healthcare, free education. If you're, a single mom, you basically get given housing and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
So you don't really see like the very extreme homelessness there.
Okay.
And I think because there's not a lot of drugs in circulation either, that's a much less of a problem. So coming into Vancouver and being exposed to that for the first time, I was like, wow, first of all, there's people smoking weed and doing drugs in the street and all these. I was like, what did I sign up for?
Yeah, you were shocked.
Yeah.
To say the least. So you moved here as a student, and how would you say the financial system in Canada differed from back home in Belarus?
I think the biggest difference, and it's still I think the biggest difference today, is just how I would say frivolous and how welcoming people of credit are here versus back home. So back home, and I would say that's probably true for most of Europe, including the UK, Germany, etc. Most people use a debit card for their primary spending method. Like the idea of maximizing your points or cashbacks, two different, like this is crazy. That's
having 10 different credit cards, not a thing, right?
Exactly. No, it's not a thing. Like most people might have one credit card and they would use it as like an emergency card, but really the primary card is a debit card. They pay, and that's kind of where the transaction ends. Obviously here, it's completely opposite. First, and the other thing I should say, credit score is not really a thing back home.
Okay.
So coming here, you're exposed to all of these different credit options. Even as an international student, like people will give you credit.
Easily.
And you have no idea like how a lot of these decisions you make impact your credit score for 7 years, right? That's how long it stays on your credit report. And so I don't know, like it was very different in terms of how people approach money here. Like, don't get me wrong, now I use my Amex for everything because I want to get the points. But early on I had no idea of how like even one missed payment could impact you.
Nobody teaches us this. And as you said, they're very predatory on those campuses especially. Like it's like, here's a free iPad with your credit if you open a credit card with us. And it's like,
why wouldn't I want a free iPad?
But it's free money too. That's what you think of it, right?
100%.
Because you were here alone. So what was your experience like when you got your first credit card? Did you? Yeah,
I totally maxed out my first card. Like I remember getting this like Capital One ad in the mail, and I was like, oh, that could be cool. Like I wonder how much. I didn't even think I would get pre-approved for this much, right? And the approval process is so fast. You just put a couple of details in. Yada, yada, yada. And also I was like, oh, you're approved for $4,000 in credit limit. And I was thinking, well, cool, that's $4,000 in free money. Obviously, that's not the case. But, I remember getting that card, and I think within 2 months, completely maxing it out with basically no way to repay it. And I was so embarrassed to tell my parents, and I basically didn't. I to this day, thank God they don't speak very well English, so I'm never gonna find out about it. But like they don't know. I basically just like, it took me 2 or 3 years to pay that $4,000 off because I was a student. I was like, I had like other bills to be paid. Yeah. And the last thing I could afford was, paying off this credit card that I racked out.
But were you working during the time, or?
Yeah, I always had a job. So during like one of the things during university, I always had to have a job because I had to pay for like groceries, and my dad kind of helped me a little bit with rent, but it just kind of ended on that. So if I wanted to go out with my friends, for food and everything else, I had to always work. So I always had a part-time job, and I would say it kind of was different in my first year to like my fourth year. Obviously, I got better jobs and better salaries and stuff. But I would say I worked between 20, 30 hours a week. And then I made anywhere between, I don't know, like $500-$600 a month probably in my first year to like, eventually I was making like over $2,000 a month in my last year. But like, I racked up that credit card debt in my second year when I turned 19. Wow. I was making maybe $800 a month. And I had to pay for my groceries, my phone bill, and everything else. And so you don't really have any money left over to be covering your debt payments as well.
So how did you get out of that debt?
Like slowly chipping away at it. And then I got like a gift from my grandma a couple of years down the line. I think in my third or fourth year of a few $1,000s, and I basically used that to pay it off completely. Yeah. But until then, I was literally just like slowly chipping away at it.
Yeah, and then the interest is.
And the interest, exactly.
The interest is something else.
I know. Yeah. But this is the thing, right? Like, there's I guess you could say there's nobody else to blame but me for not knowing. But the idea is there should be more education on stuff like that, especially for international students and kids who come in, they don't know a lot. And it's very easy to get caught into this trap and then basically have to rely on someone to bail you out, or I don't know. Yeah.
So, and if there was an international student that you were talking to, what advice was there any advice that you would give them to, they're learning the new financial system. What are some things that you would say, okay, you need to know this before you come here?
Well, I just think you need to really understand that every single thing that impacts your credit impacts it for a very long time. So any single small mistake you make, that's going to be with you for, I think, 7 years, like I said. And you don't even understand. It's not just not paying off your credit card. But for example, your phone bill and being late on your phone bill, that goes to your credit report. Overusing your credit card and usually being over 30 to 50% utilization of your entire debt, that's bad for your credit card. Anything that is like a late payment that gets sent to collections, obviously. Yes. That's that stays with you, and that is very hard to get over. Yeah. So just really understand, there is good companies now that are doing a lot of stuff. Like Borwell has their credit report coach. So there's companies that are educating you is hey, your utilization ratio is too high, don't miss a payment. But there's a lot of intricacies. And another thing is actually inquiries on your credit file. That's another thing that really does dig you, and you don't know it. You're just you could be applying I didn't know I was applying for every credit card I could, every single one. Yeah. So it's those are the things you just don't know. So definitely learn ins and out of if you're gonna get involved in the system, and I think you should because you want to be able to build credit. Learn how every single decision you make related to credit will impact you for a very long time.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a credit card series because I think it's very important. We need to know there are 5 different things that make up a credit score, but nobody teaches us about any of it. So I'm gonna do a series where I break down each and every part of that because I think it's important to educate people and give everyone the same playing field. Because for example, my parents taught me, before I even had a credit card, they taught me about the importance of credit. So I never had that experience of going into that because I knew this is not my money. This is not my money. I should not be spending it like it is my money. So I'll do that series coming up soon.
That's definitely important. I think it's going to be so useful.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any other mistakes that you made, would you say, while you were in your financial literacy journey?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if there's mine is mostly just being very irresponsible with credit, but I think there are some things in terms of just kind of not understanding how I think payments work in Canada. What are the best ways to like, where is the best places to put your money in if you do have savings and stuff like that. Because coming in, you know, on campuses, the big five are going to be the ones who will pitch you the most, right? Like they have the most resources.
And just for context, for those who don't know, big five are the big five Canadian banks here. We have TD, BMO, RBC, CIBC, and Scotiabank. And they are the ones, as you said, that are on campuses. They're the ones who are advertising to you, and you'll probably sign up with them typically. But
there are a lot of fintechs, and obviously being a fintech founder myself, like, you know, I am very passionate about a lot of these companies offering much better deals for, like, you know, no-fee bank accounts and, you know, no-fee credit cards that are actually really good from a cashback standpoint, really good high-interest savings accounts and stuff like that. Like, make sure you explore your options. All I'm saying is, like, I think so I'm an RBC client, full disclosure, and I've been an RBC client since basically when I first came to Canada. Switching banks is a process. And so once you sign up with one, you're probably not going to be switching.
And they know that. That's why they go for you once they come into the country.
And I was like, I think I looked up a bank really close to me. It was RBC. I was like, Royal Bank, that sounds kind of cool. I'll go there. You know, that's the amount of research that went into opening a bank account, opening a credit card when it came to me. So, like, just make sure that you research all the options, that you know what's out there, and you pick the best thing that is there for you rather than the first thing that's available.
I totally agree. And I'm a big proponent of these no-fee banks, like EQ Bank, Neo Financial, the fintech, Simply, like there's so many other options. So I encourage all of you to look into the other options that are available because you do not need to go with one of the big five. Okay, so there were a few mistakes that you made, but now you are a CFA. So how did that happen?
Honestly, like it seems like a lot of things in my life, I kind of just fell into it.
Okay.
I did an internship as a financial analyst at a startup in Vancouver in my third year, after my third year. As part of that internship, I actually was exposed to the company raising their Series A, which is kind of when I started being really interested in tech.
And could you explain what Series A is?
Series A is basically one of your first institutional rounds of financing where you bring in venture capital on. There's different series. They call it, Series A, B, C, D. Now there's F and whatnot. There's seed. Really, Series A just means you're raising, well, in this current environment, probably between $10 to $20 million from venture capital. And so I help the company raise that money and participate in that process. And that was my first exposure ever to like capital markets, venture capital, M&A. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like I like that way more than traditional, just, like accounting and finance. And so I wanted to get, exposure into that and the very traditional path that you would go through to get into like any type of venture capital is through investment banking. And so I ended up enrolling into CFA to just have a better shot at getting jobs. Also because one other thing I didn't know is that you kind of have to be in the business school to get access to a lot of those jobs. I don't think that's true anymore, but that was at the time. Okay. And I was an economics grad. I was in Bachelor of Arts. So I enrolled into CFA then. And then when I joined the Deloitte Investment Banking Group, I just kind of continued on getting it done then because it just means better career opportunities. And also meant I probably didn't have to do an MBA or another like more expensive degree. And I was like, I don't really love school, to be honest with you. I kind of always hated school, not a big student. Okay. So I was like, the way I can do it with the least amount of effort required, but I'm still like upskilled and have something on top of my degree, that would be great. And so I actually just got my charter, I guess last September, finally, after 2 years of delays because of COVID and not being able to do my level 3.
Yeah, I like how you say it, like, I don't like school, but I feel like it's a really hard...
It's a very hard exam.
Yeah, extremely hard. It's 3 levels, right?
Yeah. No, so the reason I say I don't love school is I don't like the idea of having to, like, commit full-time to go to classes. Okay. Like, the studying, actually, I'm very lucky with that, and I hope it doesn't come off cocky or anything, but schools always came relatively easy to me, like... I never had to try very hard, and I always did okay. Like I was never an A+ student, but I always did more than average, and I did better than average, and I put quite a little amount of effort to it. So with CFA, it was the same thing. I just like crammed, every single exam. I was always on the edge of like I was never one of those people who go into the exam thinking 100%. I'm walking out passing. I was always like, oh, could be a pass, could be an odd pass, not sure.
That's so funny.
Always on the line.
Yeah.
But I managed to get it done. But the point is, I just didn't like the idea of having to do another 2 years of MBA, having to go full time, give up working, and go for school. Through school again.
Fair enough. I'm the same way. I don't see myself going back to school unless someone pays for it. Maybe then I'll.
Maybe that it could be honestly. I think if you could get it comped, a lot of consulting companies do that. Mm-hmm. It is so cool because you just get to do this for free, and you have basically a 2-year vacation. Going to school, meeting cool people, maybe a couple of internships. It's a cool thing. But for me, I was like, I don't think I can afford to spend 200 grand on an MBA and give up all this money I could have made in the meantime working full time.
So when you got your CFA, then you started working at Square or?
Yeah, so I actually I was supposed to finish it while I was at Deloitte, but I didn't because COVID happened. So they canceled the exams for a period of a year and a half.
Oh wow.
And then during that time, I had basically taken on a role at Square for finance and strategy, where CFA was kind of less relevant at that point because it was more tech focused and stuff like that. But I was so far in, I already passed the 2 levels. I kind of wanted to just get it done so I can have the letters.
Might as well.
Exactly. So I did my last exam in June or July last year, and I got my charter shortly after that.
Mm-hmm. And what were you doing at Square, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so I was kind of the key finance business partner for their Canada business. Mm-hmm. So, obviously their primary business is in the US, and kind of 90% of Square's revenue and business happens there. But they do have presence, and it's growing international presence in kind of Canada, UK, Japan, Australia, I think now Ireland as well. Okay. And so the idea was that in each of these markets, there would be a key finance person who would kind of be the stakeholder to go to for anything finance related, would report to the board locally, would be the one who would reconcile kind of all the financial statements for that market, would be the person that would get consulted on for any new product releases and stuff that it required, financial input, pricing, competition analysis. So I kind of was that. Mm-hmm. So, I was at the same round table as people who were in the industry for so long, who were director of finance or director of sales and stuff like that. And here's me at 26 years old, being the finance person, and they all go to me and ask me for insight. Really cool experience. Yeah. Honestly, I had a great time, but I decided to start my own business. So
nice.
I don't think I would be leaving otherwise. I was very happy there. I think if it wasn't to start something on my own, I think I'd probably still be there.
So you went from financial illiteracy to becoming the head of finance, basically of Canada at Square, and now you have your own company. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you do at your company? What is your company?
Yeah, so my company is Chexy. Okay. Basically, what we're trying to build is a fintech platform that enables tenants to pay rent kind of in a much better way than the way they're paying rent right now. So right now, people mostly pay rent by check or e-transfer in Canada, which to me is crazy, especially the check side. So my most recent rental, I had to give 12 quoted checks. Wow. I was like, I can't believe this is still a thing. Yeah. And even e-transfer, if you're living in Toronto or Vancouver, you probably may pay more than $2,000 a month in rent, and that's what most bank limits are set for e-transfer. So you're sending your landlord e-transfer on 2 separate days, having to remember it. So we're revolutionizing and kind of modernizing that, making sure you can pay with your debit or credit card, and you can basically make that a recurring payment, automated. But most importantly to me, it's your biggest monthly expense every single month, and you don't get anything in return for it. On every other spending you do, especially using a credit card, you get to build credit and you get to earn rewards. So why shouldn't your rent be working for you, especially when you pay so much for it? Yeah. So essentially, that's what Chexy is trying to build is, a way for you to be able to build credit and earn rewards on every dollar you spend in rent, and hopefully bring the method of paying rent into the 21st century.
Very cool. And why did you start? What was the inspiration behind starting this?
very long story. I'll try and make it short. But when I moved to Toronto, I went through the rental process here. And, I've rented millions of times in Vancouver before. But the last time I rented in Vancouver as a student, renting as a student is always complicated. A lot of landlords don't want to take a risk on you. You might need a co-signer, stuff like that. But by the time I was finding a place in Toronto, I was working at Square, making 6 figures, good credit at the time, over 700 at that point. Really no reason why I should be, put it in through the hoops of having to find a rental. And I still found the process very antiquated. You go through so many different listings, different landlords ask for different things, different application forms and stuff. And I was like, this whole process of renting here is just so antiquated and so archaic. I really wonder why, and, can we change that? So our original idea, which I will say still remains kind of our North Star vision, is this one-stop shop rental marketplace. Imagine if finding your next rental was as easy as just going on your phone, being able to scroll through, being able to book an appointment to view a place, being able to apply on the same app, pay rent on the same app. Everything happens on the application rather than a million different, email and, phone and then, everything else that happens in between. And so kind of that was our original, goal, and again, remains our North Star vision. But basically what happened is we realized it's a very big problem to be solved, and, we suffer from a classic chicken and the egg problem of being a double-sided marketplace. So we decided to hone in on tenants first, because to date, most PropTech have really focused on solving the landlord issue. But nobody really cares about the problems that tenants suffer. And outside of just paying a lot for rent and having a shitty process of finding rentals, the other thing is people pay rent and they pay so much in rent, $2,000, $2,500 a month, and they get nothing in return. And so that was something, especially I think, with my experience of, not being able to build credit on rent, for example. I told you, I racked up this credit card debt, and there were times I missed credit card payments and phone payments, but I always paid my rent on time. But that never counted toward my credit. And if there's a way I can solve for that, if there's a way for financially responsible consumers who want to be able to build rewards, they can do that on rent. I think we should be able to provide that to them.
100%. Wow, that's a great vision for the company. So if somebody wanted to sign up for Chexy, how would they do that?
Yeah, so we're actually in a process of alpha testing right now, and we're hoping to launch kind of wider in the province of Ontario by the end of the year. So definitely go check us out at chexy.co, sign up to our wait list, and you'll be one of the first people to know whenever we're live. But also, you can start earning points and rewards on rent today by referring your friends, by participating in someone else's surveys. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is we're going to be running some cool campaigns in the next couple of months. Basically, for example, across all of our signups, the more referrals you make, the more entries you have into a campaign, and the prize could be something like free month of rent, which, who wouldn't like a free month of rent, right? Especially in this economy. Yeah. So definitely, go check us out at chexy.co and sign up.
Cool. And would my landlord need to sign up for it as well, or how would that work?
No, actually, one of the biggest selling point of our platform is the idea of no landlord sign up required, because landlords are very sticky and they used to doing things the way that has worked for them for years. So the idea would be actually that you pay us and we settle with your landlord status quo. So early on, we're probably going to open it just to people who pay their rent by e-transfer, because this is very easy for us to take over. No change on the landlord side. Still gets an e-transfer on the first of the month that just comes from us. And then eventually we'd want to also help people who do pay rent via check, and especially posted a check and potentially taking that over and allowing that the flexibility. That would be the goal as well.
Very cool. So if I understand correctly, I sign up for Chexy, and then my rent is $2,000 a month. I pay that via my credit card. I get my points I'm getting my points. And then Chexy will pay my landlord. They'll e-transfer my landlord.
Exactly. That's very easy. You can choose your credit or debit card to pay, and you can opt in for building credit. Some people might not want to, but I think it's a pretty cool feature, especially for free, that we'll be offering that. Why wouldn't you want to be building credit, especially if you're a responsible renter? If you don't pay your rent on time, potentially you don't want that. But if you're a responsible renter, which the majority of people are, this is something that will basically kill off a couple of basis points of your mortgage down the line.
Yeah. So can you explain that? How How does the building credit feature work?
So think about, paying rent is a contract similar to any contract that you have like for a phone bill, right? So the idea is the same. You sign an agreement for your rent, you'll be paying an X amount of money to live in the place. You're basically getting access to credit by virtue of being able to live there before you have paid off your full year of agreement. So we're working together with TransUnion and Equifax to basically establish a way that that could work towards your credit. There's a couple of companies that are trying to do the same,
like Landlord Credit Bureau, I think.
Yeah, I think they have pretty bad reputation because they're kind of landlord sided. I think the idea is people get enrolled without their consent, which is absolutely not what we want to do. We're very tenant centric, and we really want to help the tenant, which is why I say it's an opt-in feature. If you want to, please opt in. If you don't want to, it's up to you. Your landlord will have no say whether your rent gets reported or not.
That's good.
But there is Borwell, who's now piloting the earning building credit on rent. But they are charging $5 a month for it, which makes sense from a business standpoint. But we are hoping that we can kind of extend that feature for free.
Oh, nice. I love it. And where is this operating? So is it all over Canada, or will it be in the major cities? How?
We'll be focusing in our launch, we'll be focusing on the province of Ontario.
Okay.
Just because it makes sense, that's our local focus. In terms of actual legality, we can operate anywhere in Canada outside of Quebec. Quebec always adds additional complications. Which is too bad, but it is what it is. But, we're going to be focusing our efforts early on Ontario.
Okay, very cool. And so if someone is a newcomer listening to this, they can sign up once they come here and then start.
Yeah, I would say sign up today. Like, sign up to our wait list. We don't spam you with emails or anything like that. Literally sign up and, maybe refer a couple of your friends, start earning points today. And you'll be one of the first people to know when we launch. And, it will be a staggered launch. We are a startup, so we won't be, if we have like 5,000 people on our wait list, we won't be letting all 5,000 to sign up right away. So, sign up now so you're going to be amongst the first few batches and can start making your rent work for you.
Yes, I love that. And we'll make sure to leave that link in the description box in the show notes just in case you want to sign up. I think there's no harm in signing up, right?
So no, there's no harm to sign up to waitlist. I sign up to waitlist all the time.
Too. Me too.
I'm like, this sounds interesting. Let me put my email on.
Yeah, so all the newcomers, even if you're not a newcomer, everyone, I think this would be a good option. If you're in Ontario, please sign up and learn more about Chexy. Okay, so if there was one piece of advice that you would give listeners to make sure that they don't go broke trying to immigrate to a new country, what would that piece of advice be?
So I think for sure financial literacy and learning more and understanding how credit and credit scores work, especially for Canada, and what impacts every single decision you make that impacts your credit score is a big one. But I also think nowadays, we're kind of heading into recession, is my opinion, and we see layoffs all the time. So just do your research on job opportunities, what you need to, what kind of certifications you might need. But also, it wouldn't hurt to have some sort of a side hustle, remote work if you can do it. Like now with companies like Upwork, if you are skilled in something, you can probably get supplementary income for you while you're moving, and, moving is expensive, especially moving countries. So have some supplementary income that you can keep going on until you can at least find a permanent spot. Just know in the current environment, probably a good thing to have going for you.
I like that advice. Multiple streams of income.
Exactly.
Very important. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. If someone wants to find you or your company, how would they do so?
Google Chexy or go to chexy.co. Our Instagram is chexy.hq. And, my name is Liza. I just linked my profile. My last name is way too long to be spelling on the pod. Okay. But, I'm very, welcoming and approaching person, and I'm happy to chat to people most of the time. I'm really busy, so if I don't find time for you next week, I'll generally find the time in the coming months. Yeah. So reach out if you have any questions.
Perfect. And Chexy is Chexy.
That's right.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Everyone, I hope that you enjoyed this episode and learned a lot. We are going to be doing one more episode where Lisa's going to be answering just a few questions that you all submitted and from Reddit. So make sure you tune in next week. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Thanks.